Saram students, welcome back. Today let us continue with our political science. Lesson number 3. What is government? In our previous class we had learnt about 3 different levels of government and laws and the government. Today we will learn about types of government and democratic governments. Children, in our previous class, we had learned that every country needs a government to make decisions and to get the things done. That means it has so many responsibilities. So, it works at 3 different levels. That is at local level, state level and at national level. National level can also be known as central level. So, the central government looks after the nation, the state government looks after the particular state, and the local level government, it looks after the villages, towns or the localities. And we also learned about the laws and the government. That is, the government makes laws and everyone who lives in the country has to follow these. And we saw the example of the driving license. If the driver is not having the driving license, so he may be fined a large sum of money or may be jailed. And we saw that some steps even the people can take if they feel that a particular law is not being followed. Now let us continue with our lesson. Children, you know that a government is the system or group of people governing an organized community. And government, it normally consists of legislature, executive and judiciary. And the government, it is a means by which organizational policies are enforced as well as a mechanism for determining policy. That means government is the mechanism or groups which governs and implements decisions in an organized manner that are formed under certain written rules. Children, who gives the government this power to make decisions and enforce laws? The power to make decisions and enforce laws depends in the form or type of government. So, let us learn the types of government. That is democracy and monarchy. Now, let's see what is democracy. In a democracy, it is the people who gave the government this power. They do this through elections in which they vote for particular persons and elect them. And once elected, these persons form the government. And in a democracy, the government has to explain its actions and defend its decisions to the people. That means in a democracy, the people, they are giving the power to the government through elections. That is, they go and vote for them. And once these persons are elected, they form the government. And the actions or the schemes, the programs, whatever the government undertakes, they have to tell the people. That is, they have to explain its actions and they have to defend whatever decisions they are making to the people. Now, let us learn the second type of government. That is monarchy. The monarch means king or queen has the power to make decisions and run the government. The monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matters with, but the final decision-making power remains with the monarch. Unlike in a democracy, kings and queens do not have to explain their actions or defend the decisions that they take. Children, we know that governments make, execute and implement laws. which are applicable to all. Although all governments are the same in that they control a country and its laws, but not all governments are created in the same way. We saw that in a democracy, for example, people vote in elections and directly or indirectly choose the Prime Minister, President, and other leaders of the country. And people have the power to make a court of law if they feel that a law has been broken. And the government is answerable to the people. That means if anything goes wrong, the government, they have to explain and defend to the people. They have to answer if anything goes wrong. They have to prove that why the things have been done in that particular way. That means the government is answerable to the people. But in a monarchy, the power of decision making is in the hands of a monarch, that is king or queen, who is not answerable to the people. That means the monarch, they may have a small group of people to discuss the matters, but the final decision lies in the hands of the monarch. That means whatever they have to do, they don't have to explain or defend themselves to the people. So whatever they do, it is final. Children, which type of government do we have? Is it democracy or monarchy? Yes, we have the democratic government. That means India is a democracy. But this achievement is the result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. And the main feature of the democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. So, a democracy is rule by the people. And the basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. Children, what are these democratic governments in our times usually referred to? The democratic governments in our times, they are usually referred to as representative democracies. That means in representative democracies, people do not participate directly, but instead choose their representatives through an election process. Children, we have seen wherever we stay, whenever the elections take place, there are many representatives. So, you know that your parents, they go to vote, isn't it? And if you have a brother or sister who has completed 18 years of age, they also have the right to vote. So, they all go and vote the representative whomever they wish to choose. And when they go to a polling booth. And we have seen that a mark is put on their index finger. This means that this person has voted, so that that person cannot go again and vote. So each person has the right to vote only once and choose their representative whomever they want to vote. They can go and choose them. Now, once they are elected, what do these representatives do? These representatives meet and make decisions for the entire population. These days, a government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows what is known as universal adult franchise. This means that all adults in the country are allowed to vote. But it was not always like this. Can you believe that there was a time when governments did not allow women and the poor to participate in elections? This means in their earliest forms, governments allowed only men who owned property and were educated to vote. That means the women, the poor and the propertyless, and the uneducated, they were not allowed to vote. That means the country was governed by the rules and regulations that these few men made. Children, you know, when did India get independence? Yes, India got independence in 1947. How did it get independence? India fought against British colonial rule and became an independent and democratic country in 1947. But in India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. And several people, including Gandhiji, were shocked at the unfairness of this practice and demanded that all adults have the right to vote. This is known as universal adult franchise. This means that all the adults in the country, they should be allowed to vote irrespective of their caste, class, creed, religion, etc. So, writing in the journal Young India in 1931, Gandhiji said, "I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should have the vote, but that a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote, or that a man who works honestly by the sweat of his brow day in and out should not have the vote for the crime of being a poor man." This means that a few minorities should not decide the fate of the majority, and it is not a crime to be poor. Hence, all the adults, they should be given the right to vote. This not only happened in India, but nowhere in the world the governments willingly shared power. Now let us see what happened at that time all over Europe and in USA. Now let us see how the women in Europe and USA got the right to vote. That is, first all over Europe and in USA, the women and the poor, they had to fight for participation in government. And the women's struggle to vote got strengthened during the First World War. And this movement is called the Women's Suffrage Movement. As the term suffrage usually means right to vote. That means the women, they were demanding or struggling for the right to vote. And during the war, many men were away fighting, and because of this, women were called upon to do work that was earlier considered as men's work. And many women began organizing and managing different kinds of work. That means because men had to go to fight the war, so the women, they were called to work in place of those men. And when people saw this, they began to wonder why they had created so many unfair stereotypes about women and what they were capable of doing. So, women began to be seen as being equally capable of making decisions. That means, children, you know the meaning of stereotypes. It means fixing someone in an fixed image, isn't it? So, they used to think that women could not do anything. But when they saw that the women, they were organizing and managing things better than the men, so the women, they began to be seen as being equally capable of making decisions. Children, do you know who were suffragettes? Suffragettes were those who believed and advocated for women's voting rights. So, the suffragettes demanded the right to vote for all women, and to get their demands heard, they chained themselves to railings in public places, and many suffragettes were imprisoned and went on hunger strikes, and they had to be fed by force. That means the women should get the right to vote. The suffragettes, they chained themselves to railings in public places, and many of them were imprisoned and also went on hunger strikes. And when they were not eating anything, they were fed by force. So, what did the suffrage movement accomplish? It gave right to vote to the American women in 1920, while women in the UK got to vote on the same terms as men, but some years later, that is in 1928. So the American women, they got the right to vote in 1920, and the women in UK, they got the right to vote in 1928. Now children, let's recap what we have learnt in today's lesson. We learnt about two types of government, that is democracy and monarchy. In democracy, we saw that the people, they give power to the government. That is, the government is elected by the people, and those people, they have to explain about the decisions that they take to the people. Whereas in monarchy, it is the monarch, that is the king or queen, who has the power to make decisions, and we can say that it can be hereditary. That means the king's son can become the monarch. Okay, and the king or the queen, they don't have to explain. That means the people, they cannot raise any questions about the decisions that are taken by the monarch. And India has a democratic type of government, and the people, they have the power to elect their leaders. The basic idea is that the people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. And in the democratic governments, in our times, it is usually referred to as representative democracies. That means the people, they do not participate directly, but instead choose their representatives through an election process, and these representatives meet and make decisions for the entire population. These days, a government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows universal adult franchise. That means all the adults, those who have completed 18 years of age in the country, they are allowed to vote. But in the earliest times, only land owning or property owning men, they could participate in the elections. That is, only the educated persons, that is, only the men, they could participate in voting. It means that the women, the poor, the uneducated, and the propertyless people were not allowed to vote. In India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. And Gandhiji, he was shocked at the unfairness of this practice, and he demanded that all the adults must have the right to vote, and this is known as the universal adult franchise. So he wrote in his journal Young India that he could not think of a nation wherein a person who has got wealth should have the vote, and a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote. That means he demanded for universal adult franchise. Gandhiji, he did not wanted a few minorities to decide the fate of the majority, and it is not a crime to be poor, and so everyone should be given the right to vote. And we also learnt about the suffrage movement. The term suffrage means the right to vote. Earlier, women and poor of the USA did not have the rights to vote. They fought for their rights, and this movement strengthened during the First World War. Finally, they succeeded in the USA in 1920, and in UK they got the right to vote in 1928. Now children, it's time for quiz. Tick the correct option. First one. In which type of government do the kings or queens not have to explain their action or decision they take? A. Democracy. B. Monarchy. C. Both A and B. D. None of these. What is the correct option, children? Yes, B. Monarchy. Monarchy is the type of government that the kings or queens, they don't have to explain about their actions or decisions that they take. Second one. Which type of government is chosen by the people? A. Democratic government. B. Dictatorship. C. Monarchy. D. None of these. What is the correct answer? Yes, A. Democratic government. Third one. In which year the American women got the right to vote? A. 1928. B. 1925. C. 1920. D. 1919. What is the correct answer, children? Yes, C. 1920. So, the American women got the right to vote in the year 1920. I hope, children, you have understood this lesson very well. Thank you.